Okay, thanks for tuning in to the premiere of the OFN today on the Our Lads Football Network. I'm Greg DePalma, and joining me, not only on this show, but throughout we got about another couple of months to consider the off season, and then through the 2020 season, is Ryan Dunleavy from the New York Post at NewYorkPost.com. Ryan, thanks for checking in with me again, and I'm looking forward to talking football with you all season.
Yeah, it should be a good time. You see my New Jersey thing here hanging in the background?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's your logo.
Yeah. And good. I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to talking NFL wide, not just Giants and Jets, but everything going on in this crazy off season, unlike any other.
Yes, it has been crazy. There are going to be some topics that we're going to go over and we're going to have to discuss because you just have to talk about it, unfortunately. But I get no joy over it. I know I can guess you probably get no joy over it either, that we have to talk about this stuff. The Redskins, we can kind of kick off with the Redskins since that's probably the biggest story right now, even though it looks like Bubba Wallace is coming back into the news, but that's a different sport. I said this on my other show, even a few years ago when I think it was about almost 8 years ago when it became initially a big story. And I remember the first thing thinking, I didn't really know what to think about it. And then I kind of wanted to sit back and try to find out what the people of that nationality, the people who were affected by the name Redskins, whether or not they were okay with it or not. And it seemed to me that the consensus was that they were okay with it, that it was a small percentage, but a percentage that was enough where you needed to pay attention. Let's just put it that way. That's the feeling I got. But then it went away. And then, of course, it's no surprise that it's come back with everything that's going on right now. And now he's being pressured, Dan Snyder, by ownership, by his minority owner, who also is the CEO and co-founder of the FedEx biz company, who has the name brand for the stadium. And there you now have a situation where you wonder if something is actually going to get changed. It does appear that's going to be the case. I still don't know what to think about it, though.
Yeah, I think you put it. Well, I like the way you put it. Like, it really is a funny thing for people who are not affected by it to comment on, right? Like, it really, the Native Americans are the ones. Obviously, look, we all know it's a slang term for Native Americans. So, really, those are the that people of that descent are really the ones we need to listen to. And then you can't even really get a good grasp on what their opinions are, because I remember reading a poll. I think the Washington Post did it in like 2016, that 9 out of 10 Native Americans weren't offended by it. Yeah. And then I read something even more recently from, I think it was the University of Cal at Berkeley, that said more are offended than previously reported. And it's kind of like anything when you're doing polling. You don't know if you're doing the right subsection of people. You don't know if it's the right percentage you're answering. You don't know if the variables of the polling are set up for people to tell the truth about how they really feel,
or when the poll is actually being polled.
Correct. Yes, correct. So it's all those things go into. But look, here's my general, from a 3,000 feet view on it, is if it offends any significant percentage, just change it. Like, the Ravens didn't used to exist, and then they became Super Bowl champions, and now we have Titans instead of Oilers, and we have the Hornets became the Pelicans, who became the Hornets, who became the Bobcats. Like, it really doesn't matter. You root for the franchise, you root for the team colors. I don't think they have to change the maroon and yellow. Like, change the name Redskins. People will get over it, especially if the team starts winning. If they're the Washington, nameless organizations, if they're winning Super Bowls, no one's going to care what their name is. So I think really just almost to be on the safe side, I think it's time you have to change it. But what really happened here is the same thing that happens everywhere in the world, which is money talks. And
that's right.
Sponsors started to threaten to pull money, and all of a sudden now we have change.
Ryan, that, I will tell you, is what bothers me the most, though. I agree with you 100%. If they want to change the name, they can change the name. I'm okay with it. Even if I was kind of not really sure, maybe I wasn't okay with it. It's not that much where the next day I wake up and I really care.
Correct.
It just doesn't bother me in my everyday life. But what
We're
does
not we're not Redskins fans.
no, we're not. Exactly. So maybe that's something that we'll have to do and talk because I have a Redskin fan who does the show with me and covers the Redskins. Maybe we'll get him on and ask his opinion, and he lives in the area and so forth. But the thing that I am a little bit bothered with, or potentially bothered with, is what you just said: is that once money talks, and then you get these businesses, and they're threatening to take the money away from you and to take the name and this and that kind of stronghold tactic I have a problem with. It's not that it hasn't happened before; it happens all the time in business. I completely get that, but I just have a bad feeling of that kind of way that you do things, especially how it's been done over the last couple of months. I mean, even you know what kind of it reminds me of the Aunt Jemima situation from just not too long ago, where it comes out same thing. I'm like, okay, well that's interesting. I wonder what the family felt about it. And then the family comes out like after they had the company said they were going to change the name, and the family comes out, some spokesman, and says, I didn't want you to change the name. We were proud of the name. See, that's the thing that it bothers me. But other than that, you're right. Name will be changed. Everything will be forgotten.
Yes, exactly. And look, here's the problem though. Like now, I made a list of like, oh, here's alternatives, right? Just like a fun list.
Yes, you had that. I read that in the article, and there were two names I liked. Can you guess that?
But now we're in a society and where we have to be very careful. So like now, I like Washington monuments or Washington memorials because I thought to myself, I'm trying to honor the history of Washington D.C.
Okay.
Right, and forget for a fact that they play in Landover, Maryland. Like I'm trying to honor the history of Washington D.C. What do I think of when I think of Washington D.C.? Well, I think of politics. Well, we want to stay clear of politics.
Yeah.
Right? We don't want to do the presidents or the senators. And when there's a Republican government, anger the Democrats, and when there's a Democrat government, anger the Republicans. Let's steer clear of people or job titles for people. So monuments and memorials sounds great. But now we're tearing down all kinds of monuments and memorials. So like even that is politicized now. So it's become especially in that area, right? Like renaming a team right now in Seattle might be difficult, or in New Jersey might be difficult, but especially in the political capital of the United States, renaming a team right now is a very difficult decision.
Did you happen to do a poll on Twitter with that article?
No, but I'll say this. I got more. I've worked at the New York Post for 9 months. I got more emails, mostly of the angry variety, but I got more emails responding to that with people's comments, suggestions, whatnot, than I've gotten on any article since I've started. So it's certainly a topic that has people polarized. Most of the emails I received were of the Washington should not change its name.
Yeah, see, yeah. Okay, so the two names that in your article that I liked the most were Hogs.
Mm-hmm.
I like the Hogs because I'm old enough to remember that really when you think of the Redskins back in their heyday, you thought of the Hogs. And I can't imagine any Redskin fan would be upset with that. Or the older fans would be upset with that. I don't know about the younger ones, but then again, the younger ones haven't had a lot of winning. So the older ones, I think they'd be okay with that. And also, it's like a mascot. It's an animal. It's a hog. Okay, nobody's ever used it before. I don't think so. So I think I'm okay with that. And I actually would be okay too, even though this one might have a little bit of an issue, like you said in the article, and that is just call them the Skins.
Yeah. So here's my feedback. One is having covered 4 or 5 games at the FedEx Field over the years. You see two things in the stands. You see headdresses, which I find inappropriate, and then you see hog noses, which I find hilarious.
Yeah.
So I think you're playing right into it, right? All the fans, they wear those hog noses. You're talking about that's part of their fandom. I think that's an easy transition, right? Like you could slide right over to, oh, okay, we're the Hogs. We already wear our hog noses. It's part of our culture. Like, okay, that's an easy transition.
Yes.
And then the Skins, I don't know how I feel about that. I can appreciate that you like it. I put it in there as a list because I think it's an easy transition. I just think it might not be a significant enough change, right? Like maybe 30 years from now, people will be like, oh, I wonder why my favorite team is called the Skins. Let me look that up on the internet if the internet still exists. But right now, everybody's going to know what that means, right? Everybody's, if it's Skins, people are still going to default to Redskins, I think. Maybe not sports writers, maybe not people like you and I on this show, but I think Joe Fan at the store is still going to say, hey, did you see the Redskins game the other night if they're just the Skins? I don't think it's a big enough change.
Yeah, I think it would be one of those things where I could see Dan Snyder choosing that first in the boardroom, and then having to then debate the other side. Well, I don't think that's going to work, Dan. So I can see that being the case, but I could see why he would probably want that to be his first choice.
Those are the two. I think you singled out the two that are the easiest, the smoothest transitions. Yeah. We keep the team colors, we keep the fans happy, most of them anyway. Those are the two that are the easiest transition. Where even something like Washington Warriors or Washington Generals.
Actually, somebody said something I heard just the last day or two that Golden State may have an issue. So you can't. Okay. So Warriors won't work.
Okay, so now go. I don't understand how that.
I know.
We can have the Arizona Cardinals and the St. Louis Cardinals, and we can have the New York Rangers and the Texas Rangers.
I guess there's maybe, and again, I glossed over it, so there was no. Why is that a problem? But I could just think it was probably a Warrior, maybe also signifies something to do somewhere 100 years ago or 200 years ago with that slang term. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I think that's coming from.
I think it's interesting now that so now even the Cleveland Indians are undergoing an investigation to change, but the Atlanta Braves aren't.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me, but
the fine line that somehow Indians is on the wrong side, but Braves is on the right side. I don't know. I don't know. I think we're probably headed towards a world where they're all going to change. Anything, you're going to get a lot of colors and the St. Louis Blues. I think you're going to get a lot of really neutral team names, especially
nothing exciting.
Especially anybody who's expanded a lot of team names and animal names. A lot of Pelicans.
Yeah, so. And there's a lot of college basketball teams in Division I. So
Razorbacks. I mean, the Razorbacks are, when you mentioned that you don't know anybody else who's done it, the Razorbacks, their fans have Haas.
They do. That's right. Yeah.
University of Arkansas. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
All right. So we'll find out. Who knows when? So that's going to be the.
Look, it said it. I've heard it could be as soon as this season that they change the name. Look, remember
that's
the
fast. Tennessee. I thought the NFL had you have to have these name changes or these for the jersey and the logo. That takes a 2-year process or.
Yeah, I think they wouldn't change the jersey. I think it would still be maroon and gold, and it could be one of those. It could be one of those situations where they announce the new team this year and almost give it it's this is the last year as the Redskins, but we're announcing a change now that goes into effect after the season, kind of thing. I could see that, but it's my understanding they want to have a new name solidified as soon as possible so they don't have to go through a season of speculation about this, possibly by September.
Okay, and right now, as far as we know, there's only going to be 2 preseason games. And maybe zero. And what did they say that they had taken out the 1st and 4th games on the schedule? Is that what they said?
Yeah, so let me explain this. They took out the 1st and 4th weeks. But not necessarily the 1st and 4th games. So the way that works is, everybody has week 1 was going to be between these 3 days. You had to play between August 8th and 10th, say, and then the next one was between August 15th and 19th, whatever it is. So they're taking away the 1st and 4th weeks, but not necessarily the 1st and 4th games. They're looking to reorganize it so that every team has 1 home game and 1 away game, and that could require changing some opponents, especially to keep things distant. And I'll just use the Giants and Jets as an example because they're the teams I know the best, living right here in their backyard. Is the Jets, if you take away weeks 1 and 4, they don't play the Giants and the Eagles. And the Giants, if you take away weeks 1 and 4, they don't play the Jets and the Patriots. Well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense because the whole point of this is to limit travel restrictions. That's the whole point. Limit travel restrictions, play like neighborhood games, whatnot. Well, why would you send the Giants to Tennessee and the Packers to New Jersey and cancel the games that are Giants-Jets, literally 20 minutes apart, and a turnpike ride from the Jets to Philadelphia? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I think they're going to reshuffle if they even get the NFLPA to agree. The NFLPA is of the mind right now where baseball is, which is no preseason games, no spring training, no preseason. Just have your camp isolated and go right to games that matter.
The other thing is what's going to happen with fans. And so far, from what I have understood, is that first of all, they're going to allow every state, whatever their laws are with the virus. Okay, whatever they say goes. If they can get up to 50%, I believe, of capacity, that's what they're going to allow as long as the states allow it. Is that how it's looking right now?
I haven't heard that yet. That might be true. I haven't heard yet that they're gonna. I think they're pushing for the most that they can have. So I think whatever a state will allow you to have right now in New Jersey, it's only like 500 people at a gathering. But I think whatever they will get the state to allow, possibly with an exemption for the NFL, because the NFL has that kind of power, they're going to go. Whether it's 50%, 75%, every other seat, whatever it is. The NFL wants to go that far, but they are going to defer to governments. And I think we've seen already, particularly in California, that some governors aren't going to bend so easily to the NFL's will.
Yeah, California, I could see that being an issue. I just, look, we're going to find out first with hockey, then basketball and baseball, what the whole scenario is going to look like without fans. And I don't know if fans, if a great many of them understand how much these games will be affected without fans just by watching it. And also, no one can convince me the athlete won't be affected either. They can say they'll give 100%, but when you are not surrounded by fans and it kind of feels like a practice atmosphere, you're just not going to play like you would if you were, especially the indoor variety, when you're usually 20,000 are upon you and the place is going crazy. I just think it's, look, I don't know how it's going to work, but I think in the NFL especially, I'm just going to be surprised if we don't play with some sort of fans in the stands. It's just going to be, I don't know. So many crazy things have taken place over the last few months. I guess it could be crazy during football season, and we'll watch football games with no fans. I'm just having a hard time thinking of that scenario.
I think you're making a great point on the player. I've talked to a lot of players who just almost can't even wrap their heads around it. Like that they're going to, run for an 80-yard touchdown and the stadium's going to be silent.
Yes.
Like that, there's going to be a 4th down, 4th and 3 with 45 seconds left and your defense is trying to hold them and there's going to be no defense chant, no quarterback, going like this.
Yeah.
Because he can't hear or he's making private, signals and whatnot. Like all that's going to be gone because there's going to be no noise. Players can't really wrap their heads around that. Look, my fear with that would be, like you suggested, they might not be going at the same speed. And at any time you're not going at the same speed, that's an injury risk.
That's true.
I'm not sure that I would agree with that. I think, in the end of the day, I think, they're motivated. A lot of them are motivated by, their teammates will be judging how hard they're going. The zillions of eyeballs at home will be judging how hard they're going. And, the owner and general manager who's paying their contracts will certainly be their motivation too. You got to earn that next contract. I just think it'll be weird. I don't want to hear piped in crowd noise.
No, nobody wants that.
I want that. I think it'll be a weird experience, but I think everybody's understanding of that, right? I think we all understand it's not going to be what we expect. I'm not expecting a grade A product from the TV network or from the team or whatnot. Let's just get through it, see what it is, and reset. Maybe we'll find some things like with the NFL draft. maybe we'll find some things we like going forward that, yeah, we don't want to do it this way every year, but when we go back to what is quote unquote normal, let's integrate this. And maybe we'll find some of that stuff when we start playing games.
And again, we still have a couple months to go, so a lot can change between now and then.
Signing waivers,
Yeah.
though, is something that I think is really interesting. I talked to a lawyer recently who said, look, I mean, how many times have you heard, you had to sign a waiver to get into this amusement park, or you had to
Yes.
sign a waiver for your kid to go on this bounce house or whatnot? And those waivers don't always hold up. I mean, especially if there's a case of gross negligence, which you could argue packing people into a stadium amidst the coronavirus is an act of gross negligence, especially when we know all we know about it. I don't know how much those waivers would hold up. I've talked to one of my buddies who's a season ticket holder for the Giants, told me his wife is pregnant and he would still go to the games. And I was like, explain this to me. Why? The Giants are not very good. The Giants are one of the teams right now that is allowing you to skip your season tickets for 2020 without any penalty. You don't have to pay. You can get a refund or a credit and just go right to the 2021 season. You don't have to worry about losing your season tickets, your spot, the seat you've held for years. So the Giants aren't good. There's no financial penalty. Your wife's pregnant. Why would you go? And for him, it's just it's his routine. It's his religion almost. Like that's what he does. He goes to games and he'll wear a mask, he said, and he'll sit, hopefully no one will be sitting next to him, and he'll watch the game like he has from that seat ever since he was a 5-year-old boy with his dad, and that's what he's going to do. Personally, let me ask you, would you go to a game? If I said to you, here are face value tickets, would you go to a game?
If my wife was pregnant?
Well,
I'll go to the game no matter what. But if my wife was pregnant, I must tell you that here's the thing with that is that, first of all, we haven't heard any cases where the wife is pregnant, something has happened to the wife or the child. So that has not, if it would have happened, we would have known about it. So that has not happened. But would I want to take the chance to be the first person? So I'm okay with anybody that, whether it's an athlete or a fan, that says, I don't want to go because of this. Even though it's a small chance, I don't want to take any chances. You know what? Hey, athlete wants to stay home because of that. Fan wants to stay home. Got no problem. You know what? Another athlete will take your place. Another fan can take your place. So I have no problem with that. So yeah, would I go? Yeah, I mean, I don't have any problem with it just because of the fact maybe I'm a little bit different because I've been working in my home environment for like 20 years. So I don't venture out as much as the average person. So I think my risks are a little bit less than the average person who constantly is in contact with people. So I probably, especially if I was somebody that really like your friend that this is like their religion. This is what they look forward to every year. These are my season tickets. This is the only thing I basically live for outside of my family is my season tickets and my football game. And that's the thing that I think has been hurting this country more than anything. That's why you see the suicides are up, depression is up. People do need to be able to get a release. They have to be able to understand that there's more to life than being indoors and being scared about everything all the time.
Yeah, I obviously, for my job, I will go. If I was just, if I happen to be an accountant or a sanitation worker, and I was just a fan of the NFL, I don't know that I would go. I would probably be on the even if it's a 1% or less chance, I'll watch the games this year on TV. That would probably be where I'd lean. But
how old are you, Ryan?
It's impossible for me to say because I haven't been to a sporting event as a fan in, I don't know, 20
yeah,
years,
that's true.
15, 20 years. Yeah. So it's possible for me to put myself
that's
in that
true.
mindset.
And look, the bottom line is,
I have a young son. I don't have any known risk factors, but
except your age.
Yeah.
So. That's it. Because I think right now, basically, if you're 45 or younger, you should be okay. If you're 45 or older, that's when the statistics go up a little bit more, and you definitely need to be a little bit more careful. But that's why I think we'll find out a lot more between now, because it's interesting that the deaths have gone way down, but the people who have contracted the virus have gone way up. So it's a very weird kind of correlation that I think something's got to break in the next couple of months by the time football season starts.
I think the waiver will really show you a couple of different things, like how much money dictates all this, like what parts of the country. I think certain parts of the country they would sign the waiver no part and no problem, and other parts of the country I think they would balk at the waiver. So I think you'll see a lot of real. I don't think there's a. It's funny with college football. The NCAA is such a weak body that there feels like there's no governing body looking over everything, and I think the NFL has this governing body.
Yes.
You're going to see the NFL get regionalized a little bit with stuff like this.
And I also, because of that reason, you have more faith that the NFL will move on and college football may not, because
everybody you talk to says college football is going to the spread.
And the thing the thing that kind of bothers me a little bit about that, besides the fact that if you wait till the spring, who knows who else is going to get infected before the spring, because that's supposedly the toughest time of year that you're going to wind up contracting viruses, is right around before the spring. But that is the fact that, see, what I don't want to see happening is, okay, we're going to go to the spring, and then a month or two before everybody's going to play again, well, why don't we just skip it until the next year? We'll start over, in next dog, because I can see that happening 100% if they decide to push it to the spring.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure that's a terrible thing. I don't know. Like, look, these kids are unpaid teenagers, and I don't know. I don't love the idea. I've had people in college football and the NFL say to me, look, I don't love the idea of, even in a world where the virus is gone, we have an anecdote, whatnot. It's a minimal. It's no more concerning than the flu. I don't know that I like the idea of asking these kids to play, say it's 8 games from February to April, and then their regular 13 games from August to January, or October to February, if you want to push it back a month. I don't know that I like asking these kids to play 22 football games in 12 or 13 months. Like, no one's done that before, and we're going to ask college kids to do that?
Yeah. That's the thing. And look, if they're going to go back to college, which this is another, to me, it's another political topic, because again, the kids are catching it more now. That's the age that we're hearing. But they're also the ones that are more, okay, I got it. It's like a regular flu. I'm sick for a week or two, and then I'm okay. So
But remember here, it only takes 1, 2, 3. Remember, heat stroke wasn't a big deal either. And then a couple, and I don't want to, I'm comparing apples and oranges here, obviously, but heat stroke wasn't a big deal either 15 years ago. And then a couple of NFL players, passed away. A couple of college players passed away. A couple of high school players passed away. And all of a sudden it was, okay, no two-a-days, no, mandated water breaks, whatnot. It doesn't take a huge number.
Oh, it'll take one.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. That's why. But I guess my point was, if they go back to school, then I would think that they'll play college football. I don't think that you're not going to have college without college football, or vice versa.
I could certainly see where they go back to school at some SEC institutions, and they don't go back to school at
Pac-12.
Rutgers. Pac-12, where they don't go back to school in New Jersey and California. And more so, I could see where I'll just take Rutgers, for example, where they don't go back to school in New Jersey, but they do in Michigan. Well, now you have a split conference. Now you're not. We act like the SEC is all one thing. Well, what about schools? Conference USA, which has teams like basically all over the USA.
Yeah.
Like, not every conference is regionalized.
That'll be interesting, because so with all the money that is important to these conferences, these colleges, that's the argument. Those are the debates that are going on internally right now every day. You got the side of caution against the side of money. And that's a battle that is just going to keep waging. And I understand you got to make a decision soon, but I don't know.
We just saw let's bring it full circle, right? We just saw with the Redskins, money wins.
It does. You're absolutely right. We'll see whether that happens as well with college football. Look, as a fan, of course, I hope it wins out. I want there to be sports. That's why I do sports shows, and I've been doing this for 25 years, and I haven't been doing it for 25 years to not see sports, but it could happen. It could not. We'll see. And again, at least we'll have a better understanding once this baseball, basketball, hockey,
Yep.
especially this hockey, basketball tournament thing goes on, because they can. I just to me, giving away the Stanley Cup or whatever to basketball and baseball, it's just nobody's taking this seriously. Even if you come back, it's fun. It's sports. We're going to enjoy it, but nobody's going to take the champion seriously.
Yeah, I mean, baseball has that problem for sure. I don't know, the hockey and basketball, if they somehow get through it, they played 70 regular season games. It's
They have a better
similar.
chance, no question.
Yeah, better. Baseball, I totally agree with.
Yeah.
You.
Baseball, I mean, how many times do you see teams at the All-Star break with 90 games into the season, and then they're a fraud? They end up like 10 games under 500.
The Nationals won the World Series. They would have been out of it after 20 games.
Absolutely. Great point. And that's the whole reason why baseball is definitely going to have the biggest issue, especially because there's so many people who love baseball that love statistics.
Well, here's the other thing, too, right? If I'm a football team, say that I'm 1-3, are my guys going to suddenly decide, I don't know, 1-4? I don't know that I want to play. We've seen teams, how do I put this? We've seen teams limp to the finish line with injuries and whatnot.
Oh, absolutely.
When they're out of the season, their effort becomes questionable. The injuries pop up in a normal world. In a risky world, I don't know. I don't know if guys are gonna be busting it for losing teams in November.
Yeah, well, and that's where the whole idea of whether they're going to give 100% comes in more so.
Good point.
If,
Good point.
of course, there are still no fans at the stadium, or 500 fans, or whatever they decide upon. Now, we're going to do this again real soon. When we do, we're going to turn our attention to individual players. So there's a lot of news going on, obviously, in your area with Jamal Adams. So can't wait to talk to you about that. You got the Cam Newton move to the Patriots. Of course, Colin Kaepernick continues to be in the news. Dak Prescott gets the big contract, and will Antonio Brown be playing in the NFL in 2020? So those are all player topics we'll be talking about again, hopefully later this week. Definitely no later than next week. And then I look forward to, at some point, let's get this we have any idea when training camp's going to begin?
Yeah, July, well, supposedly.
Is that official? That's unofficially official?
July 28th is the officially tentative date for NFL training camp.
Okay.
Yeah.
And right now it's there's not going to be any scrimmages. So it's
Correct.
just practice and that's it. And
the NFL canceled joint practices. They're trying to get preseason games. I won't be surprised if we're down to 1 preseason game or 0 preseason games. But yeah, it's gonna be a very watered down product of no scrimmages, no.
Will you be able to go?
Basically, they're going to be doing, I think, what we saw a lot in like OTAs. I don't even know that you have a lot of contact practices, especially the first couple weeks of training camp. Yeah. So the Pro Football Writers Association told us recently that they're expecting to have enough people credentialed, even in big markets like New York, where it shouldn't be a problem that everybody should get to go. Probably won't be in-person player interviews. We'll probably be talking to Saquon Barkley and Sam Darnold this way, like I'm talking to you. Yeah. But we'll get to make observations from practice, which is important.
Okay, that's good. All right. Well, whether or not there are preseason games, the fact is
people hate preseason games anyway.
Yeah, we don't. You're right. The only thing it's going to affect are going to be more than anything. Are going to be the college kids that came out of the draft. Right. And they didn't have a rookie mini camp.
It's going to be hard to make the team.
Yeah, especially those guys. Yes. So, but then again, everybody's dealing with the same issues. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun talking about all that once training camp begins. And then we start to dive into teams and players and rosters and all that kind of stuff. But for the meanwhile, for the next few weeks or so, we'll still kind of talk about what's happening in the off season, but that's still okay too, Ryan. I appreciate your time. And you have anything particularly you're working on that we can see at NewYorkPost.com soon?
Yeah, I got a big story coming out this week. I'll tease it on. It should be out next Sunday on the Sunday back page. A Giants story that worked on with a player for quite some time. Kind of a offbeat, off the field story that you guys should check out on the Giants on one of their biggest stars.
All right, we'll definitely do that. Ryan, I appreciate it. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for having me.